Hello, everyone. It's Charlton. Please subscribe to my channel and tap the notification bell. I'd appreciate it majorly. So, the individual who's the shooting suspect for Judge Esther Salas, the federal judge in New Jersey, who actually wasn't even harmed in any way, but she was the target. Her son ended up being killed, and her husband is in critical but stable condition. He was shot multiple times. Has been identified and named. Roy Den Hollander. That's probably the most current photo of him. The New York Daily News. There's so much info out there on him that I just sort of kind of quickly, as fast as possible, try to accumulate and, just know what I'm talking about before I started talking. Initially, I did think that there was something very funny about this and that it seemed like there was more to the story than, but I don't think so. I don't. Now, after having processed what's out there, and there's a ton, this guy's just a huge nut, and it's such a shame. It's just terrible. But I don't think there's anything beyond him just being, a disgruntled sort of reject, that went out with a bang because he's facing terminal cancer. He's even possibly connected to another murder, to an individual that happened in Los Angeles. An attorney was killed who's actually, because he's a fanatic about men's rights. He's a men's rights attorney. He's filed many anti-feminist lawsuits. And there's a ton of literature on him, as well as a book, I guess. I didn't see it. I only saw it reported on in his websites that, the websites that they reference, I'm not sure which ones they're pointing to because there's, like a WordPress one, Weebly one and stuff like that, but they're slightly dated, and it's just sort of rambling, political grievances on a variety of things. But one of the main, beefs he's had over his life, or at least the latter half of his life, is his anti-feminist stances, probably stemming to a younger woman that he married, a Russian bride that he basically brought with him from Russia. He worked in Russia for 10 years, so that's definitely weird. Believe me, these are the things that initially had me thinking there's no way that these things are all coincidence, and the fact that Judge Salas, was just assigned this case from Deutsche Bank that's linked to Epstein, that's no coincidence, but it's not a coincidence, but it's basically, I think this guy is aware of that, and he just wanted a little extra notoriety to, it was the perfect time for him to do what he did, and he's obviously, I think everyone knows he died by a self-inflicted gunshot wound, or at least that's how it appears. The gun that was found in his vehicle, I guess it's his home. I saw, like a sky shot of what looked like sort of a cabin-like home near the Catskills. I guess that's where he lives, and a car, I guess, was parked nearby there where he was found with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And the gun found in the vehicle, the ballistics do resemble, the bullets that were used to kill Judge Salas's son, Daniel Anderl, and critically wound her husband, Mark, who remains, critical but stable at this point, is probably going to survive, I think. But, both he and his wife, the judge, have lost their son, their only son, and they'll be permanently altered. It's terrible. So, but supposedly the gun, does match that crime scene. What exactly his connection is to this other attorney, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but they mentioned in this NBC New York piece that, initially in here, it's where when you're reading these reports, the kind of, the mobile devices and the laptop, the reporting is different slightly because sometimes the mobile devices uses the reporting from like an audio report and puts it into text format, I believe. Because they reference here a California victim, but there's no name, no nothing. You're like, what is that from? When you listen to the audio report or the visual report, you kind of get a sense of what they're talking about. Because there's some dude, his name is Mark Angelucci, who was killed, I guess this is July 15th when it's being reported on. Local attorney murdered. Mark Angelucci, and that's him there, as well as there's other pictures of him as well. And he is similar to, even though I guess he's not as much of a fanatic in terms of men's rights, a men's rights attorney. but he's a men's rights attorney himself and the vice president of like some chapter, or he's the president of some local chapter in or was in the Los Angeles area, and that's those are pictures of him right there. But he was murdered. Mark Angelucci, a 52-year-old attorney who was well known for his men's rights movement, was shot and killed at his Cedar Pines Park home in Crestline on Saturday, July 11th, according to a San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. County deputies responded to reports of a shooting around 4:03 p.m. in Cedar Pines Park in Crestline. Upon arrival, the deputies found the victim, who later identified as Mark Angelucci, unresponsive, suffering from apparent gunshot wounds. Angelucci was pronounced deceased at the scene. Mark Angelucci was the vice president and board member of the National Coalition for Men. He was also the founder of National Coalition for Men Los Angeles chapter. And it goes on. I mean, I don't want to mix stories too much, but he's suspected in that killing as well. From July 11th, which is only 10 days earlier, which would I assume mean that he flew to Los Angeles and flew back. And basically, maybe had some kind of grievance with this guy as well as and just wanted to kill these people and before he took his own life because he's facing terminal cancer. Men's right maniac. Who opened fire on New Jersey federal judge's husband and son, had terminal cancer and a long history of failed anti-feminist lawsuits. He had one pending against Judge Salas that he began back in 2015, but it was still out there, and I think the judge had actually recently ruled on it, I think in June, maybe. I'm not positive that it could proceed, but he did reference her in a book that he's written on the topic, calling her, lazy and incompetent and other things. So he obviously had some personal animus against her in particular, but I mean, here's an article, and this was written well before. This is on in 2008. So, and it's talking about how, after spending a decade in Russia and moving back to the States with his young Russian bride, and she proceeded to leave him. And that basically, after whoever this reporter is, after speaking to people that acquaintances of his in Russia, that she was only marrying him for the money and the green card, and then this is part of what made him bitter towards women, etc. So I mean, there's just all sorts of stuff out there on him, but what's the point in going through? I mean, I was looking at his WordPress website from 2014, and there's just post after post, which are elaborate in nature on a lot of it revolves around world economies and investing and politics, and it's just endless. So he has some social media accounts. I mean, he's a Trump supporter, it seems, for sure. I don't think that's any shock. I mean, this is one of his accounts where he follows only 6 people, and the most recent follow is the Trump War Room, and then beneath that is Team Trump, whatever. But even in this new NBC New York article that talks about his book and about his specific references to Judge Esther Salas as being lazy and incompetent, it mentions that he had multiple lawsuits against NBC News anchors for Den Hollander is a notoriously anti-feminist men's right attorney whose vitriolic website and book condemned women in rage-filled terms. In one of his books, he specifically blasted Salas by name as lazy and incompetent and said her only accomplishment was being a high school cheerleader. Den Hollander appeared in court at one time as counsel in a lawsuit over the all-male military draft. I believe that's the 2015 lawsuit that's still been pending, I believe. And it's about some teen girl who wanted to enlist in the military, which she's actually allowed to do. But because the draft doesn't draft women, he filed this lawsuit on her behalf in principle only, or some goofy thing. It's totally ridiculous. So, But it says Den Hollander previously sued multiple NBC News anchors as well as anchors from other networks, and alleged they engaged in an illegal conspiracy to prevent Donald Trump's election to the presidency. So, again, I just think this is, some psycho, person who at the end of his life, was facing his own death and decided to go out with a bang and hurt people and, exact his view of revenge on whatever and not caring who he hurts and stuff like that. I don't think this has anything other than that, to do with the Deutsche Bank Epstein-linked case being assigned to Judge Salas. I think that was just gravy to him. He was probably aware of it, and he knew that would just add notoriety to, and that was just assigned to Judge Salas on the 15th. So I guarantee you, as an attorney, he probably, who follows the news and follows these political types developments big time, was aware of that and realized that was just, that was just what he needed to do this. That's pretty much the story there, man. That's the story there. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below, and I will see you in the next video. Later, man.